Hello, everyone, and welcome to FTT Chats, where we sit down with some of the great and the good of fintech to have a little chat. I'm Liz Lumley, and today I'm sitting down with one of my favorite people and someone for when someday, hopefully in the near future, we can enter a pub again. I owe a round of drinks. So I'm sitting down with Terry Chapman-Dama. Terry, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Hi to everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, it's been, I think it must be close to 40 days now. So the last few weeks have definitely been an experience for us all, not just within a fintech community, but just as a society and globally, actually. I don't think the world has ever stopped for one event like this before. There was something in the Bible about a flood, but I think that's the only one.
I know, it's amazing. It's just the fact that it's global, and not just something that's happened in a particular country or a particular region is just mind-blowing.
What humbles me the most is, so I speak to my cousins in Zimbabwe. So I've got cousins in the cities, I've got cousins in the rural areas. Everyone's locked down and everyone's feeling the same way. I think the nervousness, the trepidation seems to have just filtered globally. And it's the same feeling with whoever you speak to, whatever the culture is. Seems to be the only thing that was able to unite us as a human race.
There are a lot more birds in my background. A lot more birds in my back garden right at the moment, I noticed. So I'm gonna stop you there because I thought it was interesting that you started immediately talking about the pandemic, which kind of illustrates how much this is kind of overtaking all of our lives right at the moment. And you failed to tell us who you are and what you do.
Oh, sure. So I'm Terry, and I work for the international arm of the National Bank of Kuwait, and I head up and I coordinate the strategy and the delivery side of the business. So essentially, we work on a rolling 3-year roadmap, and so my team are responsible for executing on that. And I work closely with the business areas to understand where we want to go as a bank. That's growth, that's ways we want to work, that's some of the cultural initiatives we want to bring in, and then we incorporate all of this within a roadmap. And then, we steward that roadmap. And we navigate it through, as you can see now, through some choppy waters, but we try and make sure we stay true to the overall objective of the bank. I think that I have a subsidiary role, which is to use my knowledge and experience, because I think I've sat on everything from digital insurance to digital banking, innovation, fintech, and I've sort of covered the whole spectrum within financial services and technology now. And so I think the bank made good use of my knowledge and experience to help drive some of the incremental changes that we can also make, which aren't necessarily strategic, but they help move in a more efficient manner.
So, is your entire team now working from home?
Yes, the whole bank is remote now, which is mind-blowing. So I always have to say kudos to IT. We spend years wondering, what do these guys do behind closed doors? I think this crisis has been a clear illustration that whichever IT team you have, these guys are pretty good. And I'm impressed with what our guys were able to do in a short space of time. So all of my team are remote. My key stakeholders are remote. And the guys I work with internationally have always been remote, but even more so.
So you have some sort of experience managing remote teams and people that aren't in the building prior to this?
So I've done it for years. I think when you work in technology, you learn to work with offshore teams. Developers were very early on the curve in terms of just working wherever they want, whenever they want. And I think you might see some other classes of employees start to move in that direction following what's going through at the moment.
Now, but it's saying that, and I know it's an IT team and you have experience working with remote and people offshore. Are there any projects at the bank that you've run into? You mentioned your IT team and how important they were to making this work. Is there anything that you're working on that you run into problems, from a regulatory point of view or just an IT point of view that bank system can't be on a cloud or be on just, I'm rambling, but you know what I mean? Like what kind of issues have you seen?
Oh, I can give you a story. So it's not really a technical problem, but it's a huge problem. We were given a regulatory deadline of June to undertake some work, and part of that involved flying out a team of consultants to Kuwait to go and do some analysis. So I think they landed on the Saturday, started work on the Sunday. by the Thursday we had to fly them back because Kuwait was locking down.
Yeah.
So we are facing those kinds of problems, which means we have to stay close to the regulator. But as you can understand, the regulator is also subject to the provisions of lockdown as well. So you get those kinds of problems. I think people listening to this will know you get some problems with trying to create virtual desktops. So I know there are challenges around Citrix and trying to keep that stable at scale, because I don't think it was designed necessarily for millions of people to be jumping on it at the same time. So I think that there are those challenges, but normally with a good IT team, you can overcome those. And I think just human ingenuity has helped us solve a lot of these problems. I think the bigger challenge actually is, how do you manage when your model is pretty much 100% remote? Like, I think for the younger managers, this is a bit easier, but I think you're finding now, especially among leadership teams, it's forcing a massive rethink of culture, because I know there's organizations where presenteeism was a big deal. And so how do you maintain that culture of presenteeism when people are at home?
Do you think it highlights a bit? I've seen this a bit on Twitter about presenteeism and kind of, some people that get ahead by, going down to the pub with their boss. Do you think it's kind of highlighting in stark reality, the people that are working and the people that have been kind of hiding when there was office politics at play?
Partially. So I think there's an element of truth to that, where there are some people who are good at playing the game. I think that's the expression that's commonly used. People know how to play the game. Whereas, and you can still do that because we still have telephones and you can still maintain those relationships. I think that's harder to break. But I think what is interesting is seeing who actually delivers when there's an option not to. So what working from home has given people is an opportunity to hide.
Okay.
And let's see who goes missing when the work is done. Let's see who's making the excuses. And one of the things I talk to my team about, my team have been fantastic through this process. I always talk about, we need to be as sharp and as polished remotely as we are in person. So it's things, small. It starts with small things like, when you're not talking on a call, be on mute. Don't do the washing up and do the conference call.
Yeah.
Zero in focusing and those sorts of things. Just keeping everything tight. I think that's important. And then it's about, do you deliver? Are you still engaging with your stakeholders? Do they still have confidence in you? Because ultimately, remote working is a massive test of organizational trust and organizational morale. Your boss should trust you to get on with your job and do it really well. And they should create a culture and an environment where the morale is so high that that is exactly what you want to do.
So just a question moving on from culture. What are some of the sort of tools that you're using, sort of practical tools to facilitate all of your teams?
So I think it's almost worth taking a step back to pre-lockdown. And what we've done since we formed the team was we've built a culture where we all get along as a team. So every month we'll have our team meeting and we'll have our drinks afterwards. It's not revolutionary, but what it does is it brings us really close together. So we know each other personally. We have presence to each other's lives. So what that means is when we do jump on, I'm going to come onto this in depth in a second. When we do jump on a Microsoft Teams call, we already have that dynamic. We're comfortable with each other. And I think that's really important when you're working remotely, is that as a team, you're comfortable and that you're willing to listen and understand. So
everyone's working from home, notifications. I thought I turned mine off.
Sign that I am working. So I think that's the inherent challenge you have is managing that culture. So practically, if you look at how we operate now, we get together 3 times a week. And then obviously, as and when we need to communicate with each other, we can do that behind the scenes. As a guy leading the team, I make sure I speak to everyone regularly. Because for me, the job side of things, I'm not bothered with. I can trust them to do their jobs. Everyone's experienced and they're mature. It's more the personal side. Are you happy? I've had to become a better listener and understand, okay, you're in a situation, you can't necessarily go out and do the things that you're normally able to do. Maybe the things that give you a break from reality. So, it might be gym, it might be playing football. So what effect is that going to have on you? How can I help you raise your morale? How can I help you? If I can just inject 15 to 30 minutes of humor and happiness in your day, does that help? Hopefully it does. And it's actually learning to be a better human being, because being a better technical manager, if I have to be in the nitty gritty of what they do on a day-to-day basis, I've hired the wrong people. So my job is to make sure that they're happy and that morale's high enough that they're pretty much autonomous and can just deliver to a high standard without me. And then I come in for the tricky situations only.
No, I really like that answer. I think that makes a lot of sense. But you mentioned going back to some of the technical tools. So you're on Microsoft Teams.
Teams has been an absolute godsend.
Yeah.
We're new with Teams, and actually, I think one of the things we were lucky with was a year ago we had a massive drive towards operational resilience, and one of the things we touched on was we need to be able to work remotely as a bank. So we invested heavily in Microsoft Teams, and that's one of those investments that's paid dividends, because as soon as the government announced that they were sending everyone home, we were ready to go.
Okay.
And that was an important moment, because it gave the organization confidence that all the stuff we've been working on before, here's a perfect manifestation of why you have a strategic roadmap, why you have a delivery team, and why you have these discussions.
Okay. Any other tools you use that you'd recommend?
So in our case, we're a delivery team, so we don't necessarily have to, because I think Teams does a lot of what we used to be done previously. Mm-hmm. Speaking to other people, I know they're making their absolute confidence has become massively oversubscribed and so forth. So there are other tools that people are now using to work together on that really technical level. So embracing Jira a lot more, mm-hmm. and formalizing those processes. I know, the scrums are happening, but actually I think the most effective tool is putting the hands-free kit in the phone.
Yeah.
And on my lunchtime or evening walk, just touching in with the team. What are you unhappy about? What can I do to take some of that pressure off? What makes you happy? The rest of it, they're pretty well self-directed.
So I've got a final question for you, and I think I know where you're going to go with this. I always want to ask, this is a time of anxiety as well. I mean, you seem to be rather optimistic. Are you feeling a bit worried, or are you still in the world of hope?
So can I don't know how long these videos are meant to be, but this might be. So in terms of the hierarchy of things that play on my mind, is making sure my mother and my family are safe. Mm-hmm. I worry inordinately about both of them. I then worry wider, and every death from this is a death too many. And the sooner we find a vaccine, the better. So there's a degree of anxiety around that. I also know that people are worried about their jobs. And that's understandable. I've got friends who own restaurants. I've got friends that work in pubs, and everyone's stressed for different reasons. Just to illustrate a point that, it's not necessarily just the poor that are going to suffer. Mm-hmm. I have a friend in Leeds that owns a number of restaurants. Yeah. He's doing scenario planning for, if we have to reopen with social distancing, what does that mean for restaurant layout? What does that also mean for how we test our staff, how we keep our staff sanitized? And essentially, it's not profitable to open the restaurant. And so he's got that stress of, do I even have a business anymore with social distancing?
Yeah.
And then I've got friends who work in pubs, and obviously if the pubs aren't open, they're not making any money. I've got friends who are personal trainers. And one thing I'll give those guys credit for is they transitioned from personal trainers to delivery drivers almost in a weekend. Mm. So credit where credit's due. And I think there's a lot of anxiety that comes from that part of it. Will I have a job? So on a personal level, I worry less, because if I have a job, I have a job. If I don't, I don't. I've always been able to find a way to bounce back. So I don't lose that self-belief. I worry about the emotional well-being of my team, because I legit care. It's not really just about, oh, you're their boss, you have to care. I like them as people, and I'd like us all to come through this stronger. So all of these things add to the anxiety, but on a personal level, I've enjoyed the ability to shut everything off. I don't have to give reasons why I don't want to go to a pub anymore. I can actually just wake up, and my life is so simple that really, if I'm not running, Liz, I'll normally walk for about 2.5, 3 hours. So I'll get about 12 and a half, 13 kilometers in. And the clarity of focus that gives you when you've just got your head in and you're just surrounded by your own thoughts. So actually, I find a lot of what I say, a lot of what I do is a better quality because it's authentic now. There are no hiding places. One of the things that was really interesting was a friend of mine highlighted the problem. Like, you know, there have been people maintaining multiple relationships with multiple women and multiple men. At the lockdown, all of a sudden we had to commit to one. And I think these are the sort of moments
to think about.
Some of the stories I've been hearing have been really funny because all of a sudden you've committed to one location because you can't move between households. You're running up having these secret phone calls trying to explain why you're not at the other place where you used to go. And so
I've been fascinated by Demi Moore with Bruce Willis, and like his wife is somewhere else.
Oh wow.
They're quarantined together. Anyway, to get off fintech.
And then I think in terms of wider anxiety, one of the things I've been a big proponent of, I think you know this, I've always thought a lot of people have been playing fast and loose with running a business.
Yeah, that's going to expose that. Yeah, I agree.
This has been coming for a couple of years now where companies are over leveraged. They were running at such tight margins that they couldn't build any contingency in. Yeah. And so we're going through a period where we're going to find out who are the good corporate husbands, who are the good corporate stewards, who are the people who are thinking about situations like this. And that's from fintech all the way through to look at Virgin Airlines as a prime example.
Yeah.
My immediate question is, how can you be asking for a bailout after 30-something days of a lockdown?
Yeah, I agree.
Where's all the money gone?
The age of bullshitting is over.
So I think we're all going to start asking tougher questions. As taxpayers, we don't want our money to go into bailouts because we remember what happened in 2008, where bailouts paid for bonuses and they paid for share buybacks, which was never the intention. We don't want to go back to a position where we're just lending to businesses based on growth projections. And let's hopefully after this, let's go back to profitability projections. And if you don't hit those, you breach a covenant. And I think we'll have a better class of leader, we'll have a better class of business, and we'll have a better economy overall.
Oh, you're preaching to the choir, Terry, right at the moment. Okay, I'm gonna end it here, but thank you so much for sitting down for FTT chats. I really appreciate this, and I hope your family and yourself are keeping safe as well.
And you too. My prayers are genuinely with everyone. Normally, my instincts are to be rebellious in situations, but this is one of the few times I understand that we're dealing with a virus that we do not understand. And as such, our only duty to each other is not to increase the risk.
Yep. Cool. All right. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Liz.